Welcome to a special series where we interview a host of notable people from the Genius 100 Summit in Los Cabos, Mexico, on the moment that changed everything. Here, you'll learn their secrets to success, gain invaluable insights into what shaped their careers, and key takeaways on what it takes to be a leader in their field.
This is absolutely what we need. This is absolutely the future. We have to get on this.
Talk to people who think so beautifully about big, complex challenges.
G100 Los Cabos, Mexico, a special series on the moment that changed everything.
The book is kind of cool because it's essentially a chronology of what happened and when. So it's not remaking the book; it's just taking all the things that were existing and putting them together. Which
and giving most probably thank you to all the people that helped us along the way. And so even if they didn't help us, we're putting them in the book as if they helped us, because I want them to feel the ownership that I feel. I don't want to take the ownership. I want the Canadian friends to have the ownership. And I want to leave, because my term as office is up in September, knowing that they have the ownership of being the catalyst behind what happened. And there's always a catalyst, and we were the catalyst. And to me, that's an important piece, to have them all be acknowledged that we were the catalyst. Now, the work I did behind that was hard, because I had to negotiate so many things, but that's fine. That's who I am. That's what I know how to do best. And that's how we managed to do it. I listen. I really listen. I don't only hear, I listen. And then I figure out what they really want from me, and then figure out what do we have to do.
But that's a gift.
It is. And I'm lucky that I have that gift, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a gift that I would say. There's a book that's written that's called Nonflict. And the book of Nonflict, just a friend of mine who wrote it, it teaches you that often we hear, but we don't listen, and we've already assumed in our mind what the other person is saying, even though that's not exactly what they meant. And most of the conflict arises when we've assumed what they said and it's not what they meant. So the key is to go back in other words and in their words to make sure you listen to what really they said. And most of the time, it's different than what you thought they said.
Interesting. Barbara, what were you like as a kid?
I was a pretty normal kid. I was one of five. I was the second of five kids. So
Does that make you a middle child?
Well,
Ish?
It makes me the second oldest. I sort of feel like I'm everything.
Okay.
I'm younger than the first one, older than the last three. But I was very close to my three younger siblings. And I moved to Colorado to go to the university. And two of my siblings moved to Colorado to go to the University of Colorado. And one of them moved to go to DU. And I couldn't figure out why they were all coming. And I had a therapist that said one time, they weren't leaving home, they were coming home. So I loved my siblings. And I went to a Catholic girls' school for 15 years, the same school. Same
In
building.
Colorado?
No, in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
And then I came to the University of Colorado and thought I had gone straight to heaven, and found myself, and found my independence, and found sort of my passion for the world and for education.
Monette, what were you like as a kid?
Very different than I am today. I was the middle child. I had a brother that was 2 years older and a brother that was 6 years younger. My brother that was 2 years older at the time was a big bully, and he bullied everybody. But anytime it came to me, he protected me. So even though he bullied me, when somebody came after me, he was my big brother. And by the age of 16, my big brother made up for the rest of his life all of what he did to me when I was younger. And he became this incredible brother who never got married, but I was a single mom. He took care of my daughter. So it all worked out at the end. My younger brother, it's interesting in that life, we came here with nothing, and my parents worked together in a dry cleaning business. And on Saturdays, my mother had to go to work. So at 8 years old, I was taking care of my 2-year-old brother. That's not heard of today, but that's how we lived life. I lived in the same bedroom as my older brother. My baby brother lived in the same bedroom as my parents. We had very little. We came here as refugees. So you live that kind of life and you move forward. But I had love. I had love. My parents always thought of giving back to society, and everything that we did was based on that. But I really think that my parents felt my brothers were going to be the people that moved forward. I was going to go and get educated, but I was going to be taken care of by a male or whatever. Didn't happen, but they did give me the love of art. My father was, I would say, my father was never schooled, but my father was one of the most educated men that I know. So my father taught me about opera, about culture, so every Saturday morning I would be listening to Metropolitan Opera and dancing at the same time. I had dance lessons, I had piano lessons, so I had a really normal life, but I was a follower. I was like, I would wear red pants and I was too fat to wear red pants. And my father says, don't wear red pants. And I go, but everybody else is wearing red pants. So it took me a long time to find what Barbara did, my independence, and figure out that I am my own person. I don't have to follow everybody. And I could do what I need to do in life. And at the end of the day, I'm the matriarch of the family. I took care of my brother before he died. My younger brother, I brought him into work with me because he had no job. So he's working with me in the family business. So it became what my parents did, but it's me who took over at the end of the day.
And where were your parents from?
So we're from Belgium, Liège. And well, you weren't in the room when I told the whole story of I'm born in a camp. I'm born in a labor camp. And so is my brother. So we are both children of people who understood that life was going to be better no matter what. And so they had the courage to have children, and they had the courage to move forward in the worst of conditions. And so anything I do in my life, Laurie, is nothing compared to them. So they inspired me to do anything because I got divorced, I got remarried, I lost my husband. I was a single mom with no money, but putting my daughter in private school to have a good education. But to me, that's like, I don't know, it's not hard because of what I remember that they lived through. I remember when the coronavirus came and everybody was like devastated that they couldn't do that. I said, excuse me, we're in a house, we have food, we have this, we have that. I don't know, my parents came through a hell of a lot more than that. So therefore, this is nothing. So it's all relative to what your original beginnings are. And I make sure that my grandchildren understand that legacy, because legacy is about human capacity as well as social capital and not just about finance. So in my business world and even at home, I get all my clients to write legacy letters.
Oh, really?
Legacy letters are about purpose. What's the purpose? What's the values that you're leaving as your legacy? Your will is all about your assets, but what about all the other stuff that you have? And I really work hard at that.
Barbara, what did your parents do?
My mom was a stay-at-home mommy, and my father was an executive with a finance company. And they were wonderful people, but I sort of never felt like they knew me, knew who was lurking in here. And they both died pretty young. My dad, I was 27 when he died, and I was 40 when my mom died. But I am grateful for the stability that they gave me in my life. And I had a friend who I just lost a few years ago, and we've been friends since kindergarten. And we used to talk about how we raised each other. And I think it was really my deep and abiding friends who helped support and inspire me and encourage me to go be, and they still are.
But she's an amazing grandmother today. So that's a really interesting component.
My
and
granddaughter's story is way more compelling than mine. My granddaughter, and I'll tell it to you in 5 minutes or less. My granddaughter was infected with Lyme disease. She was bitten by a tick when she was 7, and they didn't diagnose it correctly for 2 years, and she was extremely ill. They did liver biopsies. They did spinal taps. They did all this stuff on this poor little girl. And anyway, they finally diagnosed it, and she got some help, but she's still at 18 dealing with it. And she read a story about a young mother who had to give up her apartment and live in her car so she could afford to get medicine for her son who had Lyme disease. And Olivia, that's my granddaughter's name, Olivia said to her mom, "Mom, you and Beat, I'm Beat, you're always raising money for other people. We need to raise money for those families who have kids with Lyme and need help." And so they, my daughter Holiday and my granddaughter Olivia, started the Live Lyme Foundation, which is now nationally and internationally, quite honestly, known. Olivia, at 14, 15 years old, was speaking to people like the faculty at MIT, 90 PhD candidates at Stanford, the CDC, NIH, Congress. She was interning at Duke, and she is a totally remarkable human being.
She is.
She is totally committed. And I just sit back with so much love in my heart and joy at seeing what the seeds that were planted and the seeds that took place. And she is simply one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever seen in my life. And her impact is extraordinary. On March 4th, which is less than a month, she's going to have a conference. They had one in person, but now they're doing them on Zoom. Last time they had this conference that brings together doctors and Lyme advocates, they had 47 states and 17 countries represented. So here she is at 18, she doesn't know how unusual this is. And it's one of the things I love most about her. You talked about humility. She's humble, she's good, she's kind. So
And generous.
I feel like I look forward instead of backward with.
But you gave her
great
so
pride.
much of those values, and so did Holly, your
Yeah,
daughter,
yeah.
because they're there.
Monette, what was your first job?
Oh, so when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a teacher. And my first job is a teacher. So for me, it was about educating and about making young minds move forward. And so at the time that I went into teaching in Montreal, the public schools had too many teachers. And I spoke French very well because of my background, and they wanted me to be a French teacher in the public English schools. And at the time, I didn't want, because it was meant 10 minutes one class, 10 minutes another class, and I said, I want to know what a classroom is like. So I ended up, typical of me, I ended up going to the country on a bus with the employees from the perfume factory, so that I could get to a school where I could teach a classroom. But then I ended up teaching in the Jewish day school systems. And in the Jewish day school systems, when I came in, I got paid as if I was a teacher in the public system. And I recognized that all the teachers that were teaching Hebrew and Yiddish were underpaid. And they all had come from Europe without their papers, and they had lost all their papers, so nobody was paying them. And the reason for the school was that education. So I started a union.
Okay. But if we go back just a little further.
So that's what I do.
What was your first paid job?
My first paid job was a teacher. No. My first paid job was as I was growing up, I had to work, and I worked in a bakery.
Okay.
Okay. And I worked, in a bakery, but I also took the newspapers. But my father, when he saw me working in a bakery, he decided, no, I should come to work for him. So he had a dry cleaning store, so he made me work in the sweat and dirt of a dry cleaning store instead of a bakery.
Did he pay you?
No.
Okay, so that's not a paid job. We're not going to use
Well,
that
I
one
can't,
as an
but I
example.
can't because he wouldn't let me do anything else but
No,
that.
I got it. It's just,
So, it was just
not one of
exactly.
your best employment decisions.
I didn't even have a choice at the time.
I
what
get
could
it.
I tell you? So my first paid job was really newspapers, bakery, whatever I could do. But I was more of wasn't the payment job. I was always seeking groups that I could work with and do good. So that's what I did. I traveled 4 buses to join a youth group, so that I could work and I could do something good for society. That was who I was. And in my fourth job, which is the job I do today, my husband was in that job first. And I remember when I brought in my first big client, it was a client that was going to give us a lot of money, and I said, "Wow, I could do this. Like I could do this 300% of my time." And he says, "No, you can't." I says, "Why?" He says, "Because it's not who you are. You need to have both, a balance between the social." And I grew up that way. So,
Barbara, your first job, paid job.
My first real paid job was when I graduated from CU.
No, not
No, before then.
first job. Someone
First
gave you
job.
money for doing it.
Well, there wasn't. I volunteered
There we
and
go.
taught handicapped kids in the summer. You know, I mean, I don't think I was paid during my summers, where I would come back and volunteer doing something in the nonprofit world. So my first real paid job was when I graduated.
Really? And what was that?
I had a degree in psych, but it was really in research psychology, and I worked for Mountain Bell, the telephone company, and I did advertising, pre and post tests, new product surveys, personnel studies, and it was a great job in a sort of a slightly bizarre company that went on to become part of, you know, the Bell system, AT&T. But it was a great job, and I did that till I had my first child.
Now, may I ask a question? The
Sure.
name of our show is The Moment That Changed Everything. Monette, what was your moment?
I remember it well. I did what you usually do at somebody at my age at the time. You get married, you have children, you take care of your husband. I put my husband through law school, my first husband. I sacrificed and I went to teachers college instead of going to law school so that he could go to law school. And when he left me for another woman, I decided that I had to make a life for myself and my daughter and figure out what my life was going to be like. And I was embarrassed to tell the world that he had left me. But the day I did tell the world he left me, I knew I was going to stand on my own 2 feet and figure out what my life was going to be all about.
Barbara, your moment.
Similar. Similar. I was 35.
I was
and-
also 35.
Yeah, there you go. I was 35, and I was meant to be Cinderella, and I was living a life, and I was married, happily married, and I had 2 kids, and I was doing work in the community, same story, and got divorced, and I always say it was the best, worst thing that ever happened to me, because I thought it was the worst at the time, but it was really the best. That was the moment that I became me. That was the moment that I grew up. That was the word that I took responsibility for the outcomes of my life. And I knew I was going to be the sole support of these 2 fabulous children. And I had to get my act together. And that was when I started my company, which should never have worked. Nobody would have given me a dime. Nobody would have loaned me any money. And it did work. And it worked quite successfully. And so that was the moment, when you change the trajectory of your life. That was the moment that changed the trajectory of my life, and I will be forever grateful.
Barbara, Monette, thank you so much. This is The Moment That Changed Everything from Genius 100 Visions in Los Cabos, Mexico. Thanks, guys. Will you come back again?
Absolutely. Just ask me.
To learn more about how you can support G100 initiatives, visit genius100visions.com.